The distress call commander Elena Reyes stared at the holographic display with bloodshot eyes. 76 hours without proper sleep had left dark circles under her eyes, but sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not when the fate of 15,000 lives hung in the balance. "Status update on the evacuation?" she asked, her voice hoarse from overuse. Lieutenant Kirval, a tall Vestian with pale blue skin and 4 nimble arms, manipulated the control panel with practiced efficiency. 32% complete, Commander. At current rates, we can evacuate another 2,000 before our transport capacity is maxed out. Reyes didn't need to do the math. Outpost Vega had a population of 15,000, 8 different species living and working together on this remote mining colony. Their available ships could evacuate barely 5,000, leaving 2/3 of the population stranded when the swarm arrived. The swarm. That's what they were calling the mysterious alien force that had appeared 3 months ago, destroying one outpost after another as it moved inexorably through this sector of space. No communication, no demands, just systematic destruction. Reyes moved to the observation window of Vega's command center. The outpost sprawled beneath her. Habitat, domes, processing facilities, and the indigenous plant life that had been carefully preserved during colonization. It was beautiful in its way, this place they'd called home for 12 years. Soon it would be gone, like the 6 other outposts before them. "Any response from the Galactic Concord?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "Communications officer." Tarek shook his head, antennae drooping in a clear expression of disappointment, despite his insectoid features. "Nothing beyond the automated acknowledgement, Commander. Their nearest defense fleet is allegedly engaged in priority operations in the Cygnus sector." Reyes clenched her jaw. The Galactic Concord, the governing body that united most spacefaring species, had been maddeningly passive about the swarm threat. Officially, they classified it as a localized territorial dispute requiring further study, despite the fact that the swarm had already obliterated 6 outposts with a combined population of over 40,000. "Commander," Lieutenant Kirval spoke up, her voice hesitant. "Perhaps it's time we consider alternative assistance." The command center fell silent. Everyone knew what she meant. Earth. Humans were the newest members of the Galactic Concord, joining only 27 years ago. They were classified as a developing species of particular note due to their unusual evolutionary background. Earth was designated a Class 12 death world, a planet so hostile that it produced organisms with exceptional durability, aggression, and adaptability. Most other intelligent species had evolved on worlds classified between 1 and 4, with peaceful conditions conducive to the development of intelligence before aggression. Humans were an anomaly. They had developed intelligence while remaining aggressive, a combination that made the conquered deeply uneasy. Under the Treaty of Sol, humans were strictly limited in their military operations outside their home system. The treaty had been a requirement for Earth's admission to the Concord, ostensibly to maintain peace and stability, but really to keep humans contained. Requesting Earth's help would violate about 15 sections of the treaty, Reyes said, rubbing her temples. She was one of only 800 humans on Outpost Vega. Most of her people were miners or engineers, with a handful in security positions like herself. "With respect, Commander," said Terex, "the treaty also guarantees Concord protection to all member colonies. They've already violated their end by abandoning us." Reyes turned to Security Chief Dravek, a stocky Montarian with granite-like skin. "Your assessment?" Dravek's crystalline eyes flickered with internal light, their equivalent of a concerned expression. "The swarm will arrive in approximately 48 hours. Based on their pattern, they will destroy this outpost completely. The Concord has effectively left us to die." He paused. "I suggest we explore all available options for survival." Reyes nodded slowly. "Show me the latest scans of the swarm fleet." The main display shifted to show a massive collection of organic-looking vessels moving in perfect formation. Preliminary analysis suggested they were at least partially biological in nature, with processing nodes that seemed to link them in a hive mind configuration. There were hundreds of them, ranging from small fighter-sized craft to enormous carriers. How long would it take an emergency signal to reach Earth? She asked. Terex consulted his console. Approximately 6 hours via quantum relay. But, Commander, even if Earth responded immediately, their nearest military outpost is at Proxima Centauri. They couldn't possibly arrive before the swarm. Unless they were already closer than they've officially declared, Kirval said quietly. Another uncomfortable silence fell over the command center. Everyone knew the rumors that Earth maintained research vessels throughout conquered space that were actually disguised warships, ready to respond if humans were threatened. The Conquered officially dismissed these as paranoid conspiracy theories. But the rumors persisted. Reyes made her decision. Terex, clear the command center except for essential personnel. After the junior officers had left, Reyes turned to her senior staff, Kirval, Terex, and Dravek, none of whom were human. What I am about to do violates Conquered regulations and probably several laws. If anyone objects, speak now, and your objection will be noted in the record. No one spoke. After 12 years working together, trust ran deeper than species differences. Very well, Reyes said, accessing a secure terminal with her command codes. I'm sending an unauthorized distress call directly to Earth Command, bypassing Concord. Protocols. Her fingers flew over the interface as she composed the message. To Earth Command. From Commander Elena Reyes. Outpost Vega classification, urgent, Colonial Emergency Outpost Vega, under imminent threat from unknown hostile force. Estimated arrival 48 hours. Population 15,000, including 800 humans. Galactic Concord assistance denied. Request immediate military. Intervention complete tactical data attached authentication code. Sierra Echo Victor 842. She hesitated for just a moment before pressing transmit. The message disappeared into the quantum relay network, racing toward Earth at speeds that defied conventional physics. And now we wait, Dravek said grimly. And prepare, Reyes corrected. Whether help comes or not, we'll be ready to fight. As night fell over Outpost Vega, the evacuation continued. Priority was given to children, medical patients, and key scientific personnel, without regard to species. Reyes had been explicit about that. No favoritism toward humans, despite the fact that she'd specifically requested Earth's help. 12 hours after sending the distress call, Reyes stood on the landing pad watching another transport lift off, filled to capacity with evacuees. The night sky above was clear, stars twinkling with deceptive serenity. Somewhere out there, the swarm was coming, and somewhere else, perhaps, help was on the way. Commander, Terex's voice came urgently through her comm unit. Multiple quantum signatures detected at the edge of our system. Reyes felt her heart sink. The swarm wasn't supposed to arrive for another day and a half. Had their intelligence been wrong? Identification, she asked, already running toward the command center. Unknown. But they're not matching swarm configurations, Terex replied, excitement creeping into his voice. Commander, they're dropping out of FTL now. By the time Reyes reached the command center, the main display was filled with ships, sleek, angular vessels that gleamed in the light of Vega's sun. They were clearly artificial rather than organic, their hulls bearing the unmistakable blue and white insignia of Earth's combined defense force. How many? She breathed, hardly daring to believe what she was seeing. 117 vessels, Kirval reported, her four hands moving rapidly across multiple interfaces. Various classes, but at least 20 appear to be heavy cruisers, or larger. That's impossible, Dravek muttered. Earth doesn't have that many warships. The Treaty of Sol limits them to 50 military vessels outside their home system. Apparently they didn't get the memo, Terex said, his mandibles clicking in what Reyes had learned was his species' equivalent of nervous laughter. "We're being hailed," Kirval announced. "On screen," Reyes ordered, straightening her uniform and running a hand through her disheveled hair. The display shifted to show a human face, an Asian man in his 50s, with close-cropped gray hair and the insignia of an admiral. "Commander Reyes, I presume," he said, his expression serious but his eyes kind. "Admiral Marcus Chen, Earth Combined Defense Force. We received your distress call. The cavalry has arrived." For the first time in weeks, Elena Reyes felt hope kindle in her chest. Earth hadn't just answered their call, they'd sent a fleet. "Admiral Chen," she replied, struggling to maintain her professional composure. "Your timing is impeccable. The hostile force we're facing is approximately 36 hours out. We've been evacuating, but our transport capacity is limited." Chen nodded. "We're aware of your situation, Commander. We've brought additional transports to complete your evacuation." He paused. "But we didn't just come to help you run. We came to fight." From behind Chen, another officer leaned into view, a tall woman with dark skin and an intense gaze. "Commander, I'm Colonel Samara Wright, Tactical Commander. We'll need all the intelligence you have on these swarm entities. We've tracked their attacks, but your up-close observations will be invaluable." Reyes nodded. "We'll transmit everything we have immediately." She hesitated before asking the question that was on everyone's mind. "Admiral, with all due respect, how did you get here so quickly and with so many ships?" A ghost of a smile crossed Chen's face. "Let's just say that Earth takes the protection of its citizens very seriously, Commander. We maintain research outposts throughout this sector, for scientific purposes, of course." "Of course," Reyes replied, matching his tone. "Research outposts with enough firepower to glass a planet, no doubt. We'll be sending landing parties shortly," Chen continued. "In the meantime, continue your evacuation efforts. My ships will establish a defensive perimeter around Outpost Vega." As the communication ended, Reyes turned to find her non-human, officers staring at her with expressions ranging from shock to awe. "Did Earth just send its entire military to help us?" Kirval asked, her voice small. "No," Reyes replied, a slow smile spreading across her face. "This is just the part of their military they were willing to admit exists, and they're not just here to help us." She looked back at the display showing the Earth fleet moving into position around their small outpost, like a protective wall of steel and determination. "They've come to send a message." The response Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the EDF Indomitable, hands clasped behind his back as he studied the tactical display. 117 Earth vessels arranged in a defensive formation around Outpost Vega, ready to intercept the approaching swarm. It was the largest human military operation outside Sol system since the treaty was signed, and technically a violation of at least a dozen interstellar agreements. "Your career is probably over when this is done," said Colonel Wright, coming to stand beside him. As his tactical officer and second-in-command, she was one of the few people who could speak so bluntly to him. Chen smiled slightly. "Probably, but I can't bring myself to care much about that right now. The Conquered is going to be furious," she continued. "Let them. They abandoned these people." His expression hardened. "Besides, by the time the bureaucrats finish filing their complaints, this will be over, one way or another." The turbolift doors slid open, and Commander Reyes entered the bridge. Though visibly exhausted, she carried herself with the straight-backed posture of a veteran officer. Chen had read her file during the journey to Vega, 20 years of service, decorated twice for valor during the Mars colony crisis, requested assignment to Vega specifically to be part of a multi-species initiative. "Commander Reyes," Chen greeted her. "Welcome aboard the Indomitable." "Thank you for having me, Admiral," she replied, looking around the bridge with undisguised curiosity. Earth ships were rarely seen in this sector, and even more rarely boarded by non-humans. The Indomitable was one of Earth's newest vessels. Officially classified as a heavy exploration cruiser, but packed with enough firepower to reduce a small moon to rubble. "Your evacuation is proceeding smoothly," Chen said, gesturing to a secondary display showing transport ships loading at Vega's spaceport. "At current rates, we should have everyone off-world within 18 hours, well before the swarm arrives." "That's a relief," Reyes said, "but I understand you're planning more than just an evacuation." "Indeed. Colonel Wright, please brief the commander on our battle plan." Wright activated the main tactical display, expanding it to show both Vega and the surrounding space. "Based on the data you provided, the swarm operates as a collective intelligence, essentially a hive mind controlling all units simultaneously. This gives them exceptional coordination, but potentially creates a central vulnerability." She manipulated the display, highlighting approach vectors. "We've analyzed their attack patterns from previous encounters. They typically deploy in a three-phase assault. Initial probing attacks to test defenses, followed by targeted strikes against command and communication centers, then a final wave that overwhelms remaining resistance." Reyes nodded. "That matches what we've observed in recordings from the other outposts." "Our strategy," Wright continued, "is to let them commit to their attack pattern, then counter in a way they won't expect." The display changed to show the Earth fleet splitting into 3 battle groups. "We'll position our forces to appear weaker than we actually are, drawing them into a trap. When they commit their main force, we'll hit them from multiple vectors, simultaneously. Conventional tactics suggest spreading our forces to protect the outpost," Chen added. "We're doing the opposite. We're using the outpost as bait." Reyes raised an eyebrow. "That's unconventional." "Humans often are," Wright said with a small smile. "The swarm has never faced Earth military forces before. They've only encountered Concord defensive units which follow standardized protocols. We're counting on surprise and unpredictability." "And if it doesn't work?" Reyes asked. "Then we fall back to Plan B, a fighting retreat while our transports escape with the colonists," Chen replied honestly. "But I don't intend to retreat." Before they could continue, a tactical officer called out, "Admiral, we're detecting quantum disturbances at the edge of our sensor range. Multiple signatures approaching fast." Chen straightened. "The swarm?" "Signature patterns match, sir, but they're ahead of projected schedule by nearly 12 hours. "They detected us," Wright said grimly. "They're accelerating their timetable." Chen turned to Reyes. "Commander, return to the outpost and expedite the evacuation. Priority 1 is getting your people to safety." As Reyes hurried to the shuttle bay, Chen addressed the bridge crew. "Battle stations! All ships form up on designated coordinates. Let's greet our visitors properly." Throughout the fleet, alarms sounded as crews rushed to combat positions. Weapon systems powered up, shields raised to maximum, and fighters prepared for launch. The calm efficiency of Earth's military forces was something to behold. These weren't peacekeepers or patrol units, but soldiers trained for war. On Outpost Vega, panic threatened as word spread that the swarm had accelerated its approach. Commander Reyes worked tirelessly alongside Earth Marines who had deployed to assist with the evacuation, moving people to transport ships with disciplined urgency. "We won't get everyone out in time," Lieutenant Curval said, her normally composed features tight with worry as they directed evacuees at the main spaceport. "We'll get as many as we can," Reyes replied, "and the Earth fleet will buy us time." Chukter. "You really think they can win?" Curval asked quietly. "The swarm destroyed the Concorde's 4th Defense Squadron at Proxima Outpost. 20 ships gone in less than an hour." Reyes watched as Earth Marines in powered combat armor efficiently organized the crowd, their movements precise and confident. The Concorde builds ships for scientific exploration and peacekeeping, with defensive capabilities added as an afterthought. These people... She nodded toward a Marine who was gently carrying an elderly Vestian toward a transport. They come from a world that tried to kill them every day for millions of years. They've been fighting to survive since before they discovered fire. In orbit above, the first swarm vessels appeared at the edge of the system. Organic-looking ships that moved with unnatural coordination, their formations shifting like schools of fish responding to invisible currents. Swarm vessels have entered the system, reported the sensor officer on the Indomitable's bridge. Estimate 200-plus craft of varying sizes. They outnumber us, Wright observed calmly. Quality over quantity, Colonel, Chen replied. All ships maintain position. Hold fire until they commit to their attack vector. The swarm approached cautiously, their first wave of smaller craft spreading out in a reconnaissance pattern. They probed the Earth Fleet's defensive formation, seemingly testing for weaknesses. They're scanning us, the tactical officer reported. Heavy electronic probing. Let them look, Chen said. Battle Groups 2 and 3 continue emissions control. Make them think you're powered down for repairs. 1/3 of the Earth fleet had taken positions behind Vega's moon and within its asteroid belt, running silent to avoid detection. To the swarm's sensors, the Earth defensive force would appear significantly smaller than it actually was. The first attack came swiftly, a group of medium-sized swarm vessels accelerating toward the Earth fleet's apparent weak point on the port. Flank! They're taking the bait, Wright said, watching the tactical display. Moving exactly as predicted. All ships hold position, Chen ordered. Let them commit fully before we counter. The swarm vessels closed rapidly, organic weapons pods glowing with energy as they prepared to fire. The first volley, streams of plasma and what appeared to be biological projectiles, streaked toward the Earth ships. All vessels, defensive. Maneuvers, Chen commanded. Point defense systems free to engage. Primary weapons hold. The Earth fleet's response was immediate and devastating. Rather than the static defensive posture of conquered vessels, Earth ships moved with startling agility for their size, presenting minimal target profiles while their point defense lasers intercepted incoming fire with surgical precision. Return fire, Chen ordered as the swarm completed their first pass. Targeted response only. Make them think we're struggling. Earth vessels fired selectively, disabling several swarm craft but deliberately leaving openings in their defensive screen. It was a carefully choreographed performance, appearing strong enough to be a threat but weak enough to encourage a full commitment from the enemy. The deception worked. The swarm's main body accelerated toward Vega, clearly sensing victory. Nearly 150 organic vessels moved into attack formation, weapons charging for what they expected to be a decisive strike. They've committed, Wright announced, a predatory smile touching her lips. Their main force is exactly where we want them. Chen nodded. Execute Phase 2. All ships weapons free. The trap was sprung. From behind Vega's moon and throughout its asteroid belt, the hidden Earth vessels powered up and moved into attack position, catching the swarm in a perfect crossfire. Simultaneously, the apparently vulnerable Earth forces at the center of the formation revealed their true strength, bringing all weapons to bear. The space around Outpost Vega erupted in blinding light as Earth's military technology was unleashed at full capacity. Railguns accelerated projectiles to relativistic speeds, tearing through the organic hulls of swarm vessels. Plasma lances burned through their biological armor, while swarms of autonomous combat drones targeted their sensor, clusters, and propulsion systems. It was precise, methodical destruction, the application of overwhelming force with scientific precision. The swarm, used to fighting defensive opponents who sought primarily to delay rather than destroy, had never encountered such concentrated aggression. On the outpost below, evacuees and personnel paused to watch the battle through viewport windows and on emergency broadcasts. The night sky above Vega flickered with the light of destruction, beautiful and terrible at once. "By the ancestors," whispered Dravek, the Montarian security chief, as he watched alongside Reyes. "I've never seen anything like this." "Humans don't fight like the Concorde does," Reyes replied quietly. The Concord builds ships to maintain peace. Earth builds ships to win wars. The battle above continued for nearly 3 hours, but its outcome was decided in the first 30 minutes. Cut off from their collective intelligence as key command nodes were systematically destroyed, individual swarm vessels lost coordination. What had begun as an overwhelming force deteriorated into isolated pockets of resistance that were methodically eliminated. When the last swarm vessel had been destroyed or disabled, an eerie silence fell over the command centers and evacuation areas of Outpost Vega. The residents, human and non-human alike, struggled to process what they had just witnessed. The unstoppable force that had devoured 6 outposts and defied the galactic Concord had been utterly defeated by a human fleet that wasn't supposed to exist. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Chen received the final battle assessment. All swarm vessels neutralized, sir, reported the tactical officer. We've captured 3 intact specimens for research. Our casualties are minimal. 14 ships damaged, 2 severely. No vessels lost. Chen nodded, satisfaction evident despite his professional demeanor. Begin recovery operations. I want analysis teams on those captured swarm ships immediately and continue the evacuation. We don't know if this was their entire force. Admiral, Colonel Wright said, her voice low enough that only he could hear. We should prepare for the political fallout. The Concord will have detected this battle. Their representatives will be here within days. Let them come, Chen replied calmly. By then, we'll have answers about what the swarm really is and why the Concord was so reluctant to engage them. His eyes narrowed slightly. I have a feeling there's more to this territorial dispute than we've been told. As night fell over, Outpost Vega, the evacuation continued, no longer a desperate flight from destruction, but an orderly process of temporarily relocating while the threat was assessed. Earth Marines and technical teams spread throughout the outpost, setting up additional defenses and research stations. In the command center, Commander Reyes met with her senior staff and representatives from the Earth fleet. The mood was a complex mixture of relief, gratitude, and growing questions about what would come next. The Concord is going to be furious about this, Kirval said, voicing what everyone was thinking. They explicitly denied Earth the right to maintain military forces in this sector. They also explicitly promised to protect us, Terex countered, his mandibles clicking in agitation. They failed. Earth did not. What happens now? Dravek asked, looking to Reyes. Before she could answer, an Earth officer, a lieutenant from Admiral Chen's staff, spoke up. Now we find out what the swarm really is. And why they're here. He paused, meeting each of their gazes in turn. And then we make sure they never threaten another outpost again. The implied promise hung in the air, not of evacuation or containment, or management of the threat, but of its elimination. It was the fundamental difference in philosophy that separated Earth from the Concord, Reyes realized. Where the Concord sought balance and coexistence, even with threats, Earth sought security through decisive action. As she looked around at her multi-species command staff, Reyes saw a new understanding in their eyes. The humans they had worked alongside for years, seemingly so similar to other species despite their Deathworld origins, were revealing themselves to be something else entirely. Not more violent or aggressive as the Conquered feared, but more determined, more willing to act when action was needed. The cavalry had not just arrived, it had brought an army. The stand, 3 days after the battle, Outpost Vega hummed with activity, but not the panicked evacuation of a doomed colony. Instead, Earth ships and personnel had transformed the outpost into a fortified position. Defense platforms orbited, where there had been none before. Sensor arrays extended the colony's detection range tenfold, and Earth Marines in powered combat armor patrolled alongside local security forces. In what had once been the outpost's main conference room, now converted to a war room, Commander Reyes stared at the holographic display showing a new threat approaching their position. "They're not slowing down," she said, her voice tight. 12 hours at current speed." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. The initial swarm force they'd defeated had apparently been just an advanced scouting party. Long-range sensors had detected a much larger swarm fleet approaching Vega, at least 500 vessels, many significantly larger than anything they'd faced before. "We anticipated this possibility," Chen said. "The specimens we captured from the first wave provided valuable intelligence. Dr. Khatri, please brief Commander Reyes on your findings." A slender woman of Indian descent stepped forward. Dr. Amara Khatri was Earth's leading xenobiologist, specially transported to Vega after the initial engagement. "The swarm isn't a naturally occurring species," she began without preamble. "They're engineered. Bioweapons created for a specific purpose." Reyes felt a chill run down her spine. "Created by whom?" Dr. Khatri's expression was grave. "Based on the cellular markers and genetic sequencing, they were created by the progenitors." The name hung in the air like a thunderclap. The progenitors were a mysterious ancient species that had apparently dominated the galaxy 1,000,000 years ago before mysteriously disappearing. Their artifacts and ruins were scattered across dozens of worlds, studied with religious reverence by conquered archaeologists. "That's impossible," Reyes said. "The progenitors vanished eons ago." "True, but their technology remains," Dr. Khatri replied. "We believe someone has activated one of their bioforge facilities, probably accidentally during an archaeological expedition. The swarm is essentially an automated defense system designed to eliminate what the progenitors considered threats." Colonel Wright, standing nearby, interjected. "And here's where it gets interesting. The Conquered has known this for months. They've been concealing the true nature of the swarm while trying to find and deactivate the source." "Why would they hide?" "This?" Reyes demanded. "Politics," Chen said simply. "The progenitors are practically deities to some Concord species. Admitting that progenitor technology is responsible for killing thousands of people would trigger a crisis of faith and politics that the Concord leadership wasn't prepared to handle." Reyes felt sick. The Concord had sacrificed 6 outposts, over 40,000 lives, to avoid a political embarrassment. "We've transmitted our findings to Earth Command," Chen continued. "They're pursuing diplomatic channels to force the Concord to reveal what they know about the Bioforge location. In the meantime," he gestured to the tactical display showing the approaching swarm fleet, "we have a more immediate problem." "Can we evacuate?" Reyes asked, though she already knew the answer. Wright shook her head. "Not enough time. We've already sent the transports, away with the civilians who were evacuated. The remaining population will have to shelter in place." "Then we fight," Reyes said, determination hardening her voice. "We fight," Chen agreed. "But not conventionally. We can't match them ship for ship with this larger force." He manipulated the display, zooming in on Vega itself. "We're going to make our stand on the ground." The plan was audacious. Rather than engaging the swarm in space where they would be, outnumbered, the Earth fleet would conceal most of its vessels in Vega's dense asteroid belt and behind its largest moon. A skeleton force would remain visible, appearing to protect the outpost while actually luring the swarm into landing ground forces. "The swarm wants to consume the resources of this outpost," Dr. Khatri explained. "Their programming compels them to harvest rather than simply destroy from orbit. If we make a space victory seem too costly, they'll commit to a ground assault." "And that's where we have the advantage," Wright added. "Humans excel at ground combat. We've had millennia of practice." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Earth Marines worked alongside outpost security forces, setting up defensive positions, placing automated weapon systems, and preparing ambush points throughout the colony. Reyes found herself working with a Marine captain named Hernandez, a compact woman with eyes that seemed to notice everything. "Your people fight well," Hernandez observed as they watched a mixed team of humans and non-humans setting up a heavy plasma cannon. most civilians would be paralyzed with fear. "This is their home," Reyes replied simply, "and they've seen what Earth is willing to do to protect them." Hernandez nodded. "The conquered has it backwards, you know. They think coming from a death world makes us more dangerous, more likely to resort to violence. The truth is, it made us more willing to sacrifice for each other." She checked her rifle with practiced efficiency. When everything is trying to kill you, you learn quickly that survival depends on protecting your community. As the swarm fleet entered the system, the trap was set. The visible Earth vessels engaged in what appeared to be a desperate defensive action, taking damage and falling back toward Vega in seemingly disorganized retreat. The swarm, sensing weakness, pressed their advantage. Just as Chen had predicted, rather than bombarding the outpost from orbit, they began landing forces, massive organic drop pods raining down on the outpost's outskirts. "They've taken the bait," Wright reported from her command post. "Ground. Forces deploying exactly where we predicted. All units, hold positions," Chen ordered over the shared command channel. "Let them commit fully before we counter." From her position near the colony's main power plant, Reyes watched through binoculars as swarm warriors emerged from their landing pods. Nightmarish creatures that moved with unsettling coordination. Some resembled massive insects, others reptilian. Monstrosities, but all shared a distinctive bioluminescent glow that pulsed in perfect synchronization across all units. "Their neural link is strongest when they're in proximity," Dr. Khatri's voice came through Reyes's comm unit. "The bioluminescence is a physical manifestation of their hive mind communication." "Understood," Chen replied. "Initiate Operation Blackout." Throughout the colony, specially designed electromagnetic pulse generators activated simultaneously, bathing the area in invisible waves carefully calibrated to the frequency Dr. Khatri had identified in the captured specimens. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The coordinated movements of the swarm forces suddenly became erratic as their neural link was disrupted. "Now!" Chen ordered. Earth forces emerged from concealment, attacking with overwhelming precision. Marines empowered. Armor moved with shocking speed for their size, their weapons cutting down the disoriented swarm warriors. Automated defense turrets activated, their targeting systems unaffected by the specialized EMP, adding their firepower to the assault. From orbit, the hidden Earth vessels emerged from concealment, catching the swarm fleet by surprise. With their ground forces already committed and their coordination disrupted, the swarm ships reacted slowly and predictably, exactly as Admiral Chen had anticipated. The end.